Roger Eagles, and I collect all kinds of animals and species from North America here mostly. Outdoors world here of Saskatchewan and wherever else I go. Well, when I was a kid on the farm, heck, I had a live mouse as a pet. There's an albino that Bill Dixon brought over. I had little hawks, I had little owls I was raising there that I found, and I was feeding them as pets, and I had little skunks and all kinds of animals. Just growing up, I was no good in school, but I was just used to all these wild animals and different little critters. And then I started trapping when I was, say, about 11. I remember catching the first fox when I was there. I got $13 for it and bought a Timex watch. All my life growing up, I was kind of trapping and carrying on. Then I took up taxidermy when I was 14. And I remember the first coon that we ever saw in the country. I just happened to be with a friend. There was a coon outside an old prairie trail 2 miles away, and I ended up skinning that back in our early years, 14 or that. We slept together in the same bed, me and my brother. Well, I hit him with it, and he got mad, so they were yanking on this coon skin, yanking and pulling. And that come the softest skin you ever saw. Man, that turned out soft just by stretching and pulling it. And then I ended up looking at it, and then we ended up making that hat. And like, my mama did the liner, and then everybody in town, Brock Perry and everybody was using it for parades and different things all around the country. It had the eyes in it, and then it just kicked off from there doing taxidermy. People start bringing me animals there on the farm, and I started doing taxidermy, and then that's when I liked to have a showroom and then a cabin in the bush, and that's how things, as my years grew up, the way I went. So, I've been taxidermist for 50 years. I'm not doing much now, just my own type of stuff. But we took an old course there I found in Omaha, Nebraska, and I got a course there by correspondence. When I ended up doing that, I went in the barn and I did this pigeon. Well, I remember it up in the top of the cupboard. My uncle come over and asked me what that thing was. I says, a pigeon. Well, he says, that's the worst looking pigeon he ever saw. Well, it didn't look good, but it was my first bird. Well, then I started on with different things and mounting different things, and skinning and tanning, and then I got into deer heads, where back there you used to boil the skulls off. And I remember my mama, she supported me all the way. She would boil the deer heads on the stove, and I'd clean the meat off, and then I'd start mounting deer heads for people and doing things up. And see, way back, like that little honey bear, we skinned that, we put the whole carcass in the freezer. We froze the whole body. Then we took it out frozen, and we casted the whole thing with plaster. And then we molded the inside and smoothed that, and then we poured our rods, and then we poured the foam in there, and that's how we made that form to fit that. And that's a position. I did a whole wolf too, I put in the freezer. But there's certain animals that you can freeze the whole carcass and you make the form. But now, a lot of people, they want to do a bird. Well, how do you do a bird? So they got to order a form. And it's a simple thing. They just got the mold and they pour it and they sell it to you for about $8. If you do buy them, you got to saw them down and change them and sand and rasp and everything. But if it's a unique, like a bear, there's so many different sizes. Where do you get the right form for the way you want to mount it? So we freeze the body, and then we got exactly the right size of form, exactly the position we want, and we make it. And that's how we do those like that. Once we obtain them, we have to go get x-rays done of them. Then once the x-rays are done, then we take them into the wildlife, and then they take the permits, the x-ray things, and then they issue us permits, and then gives us where we can get them mounted. The permit stays with you forever. So we've got a shelf with quite a few permits in here. I think there must be 20-some permits I think we got for different birds and owls here. So, but those there, I think, is back in '81 when you had to start getting permits for owls and stuff. That's when they become protected, and they should be. I mean, there's nothing nicer than sit up at camp. You got a big owl sitting up on top of the solar panels and hooting away at night and different sounds. It's just so beautiful. Oh, just kind of nice for every species, a story, and every memory of everything, you know. It's kind of, the elk, we slept overnight in the bushes, or the wife and I, and we stayed there overnight, and next morning we sneaked out and we kind of got circled with the things. We ended up getting the elk finally in the morning, and I don't know, every species is just kind of a nice soothing feeling to sit back and think back, you know, but yeah, is a story, you know, like simple little things, see? Like even these fox squirrels, I got one here. We never had fox squirrels at Estevan. I can remember in the 70s, we were down archery hunting for deer down at TP Ranch, and here the squirrel come charging through the trees. Well, what in the world is that, you know? And then they started getting thicker down there, so we went down, we went and got a squirrel, and I got a 2-pounder, that big fat one there. And now they got thick all over town. I mean, and now they're way up north. They're Kisby, and these big fox squirrels, they're progressing across Saskatchewan too. They're moving north. So like every species, and yet there never used to be a squirrel here. Then they're the good eating squirrel, but I don't eat them, but that is the good eating squirrel. That little blonde bear there, now the daughter come up, and she was 11, she got a license, and we sat one night and she missed. We went back and we rode all the way home here because we saw it. And we picked her up at 7:30 in the morning here before school. We rode all the way back up in the afternoon. She got to shoot her blonde bear, so that's her little blonde bear. So it's a lot of miles on her just to get her back, and she got to shoot her first bear when she was 11. So. Well, the cougar was an interesting hunt. That was down there. I remember with the outfitter we got, we never found much, and then we finally found his tracks. And when they went on, they took off after. Of course, I never had my bow put together, and they're yelling at me, how come I'm not more excited to beat them? Well, I haven't even got my arrows put together yet, let alone, you know, I mean, you take time, but. And then we got in there, and then we found a dead moose, and that's where the cougar was on. That's what he was feeding on, this cow moose that he was on. So we chased it up, and like it was a nice sized cat, like that one weighed 180 pounds. So, but we finally got in there, we got the howling going, we got there, he was up in the tree. Well, we got underneath and the branch broke and the cat come down, he took off again, so we had to chase it for a while. Then he got up in another branch. Well, I went and I took an arrow, and I did get him pretty good with the arrow, but then he went there and the arrow went through and fell out, and I put the arrow back in my quiver. Of course, then I slung one up there, and of course I hit a tree, got in a part of it. The other arrow went beyond, it's still out there in some place in the hills. The only arrow I had left was the first arrow that I hit it with in my bow. So I took a careful bead and I got him dead center then, so I got him twice with the same arrow, you see. So that's what he got down with. So that was kind of the wild hunt that we had there back there with that cat, you know, that hunt there. I don't know, the moose, that's kind of a long story too. You finally got up, but you can't go in. You got so many days hunt, you're waiting on the weather, and the float planes don't go, and we finally got in there. And then a big storm come up, then 2 bull moose come across the lake, and they chased after the horses and chased the horses away. We finally got down on the other trail, and then we come over top. They had to stop for a cook-up, but the rut was on, and the smell of moose was really strong. So I went on the hill, and there was this big old bull standing down there in the cow and calves. I told him, if this ain't 60 inches, I don't want it, but come take a look. Oh yeah, no, that's it. Well, so I said, okay. So I took the bow aside, and I took this 458 and went down there on a big mound. And of course, he started coming across, and there's an opening there. And I was on a mound about that high, looked like a big anthill. I don't know, but I was standing on top waiting, and as soon as he come in sight, I squeezed, and the moose took off. Well, I couldn't see nothing because I was back there. That rifle blew me way off the mound. I was back there getting up, come running back, and I couldn't see, and I went back, and I said, where'd it go? Oh, I don't know. There's moose going there, there's moose going there, there's moose. I said, there's only one bull. Where? All of a sudden, I found a little bit of blood, and I went up, and there he was, and I ended up shooting it up the butt. But I mean, the massive size, that was 80-some inches from the hump to the toe. They are a massive animal up there. And then wolf trapping, that's fun. You know, once you catch them in the drags, because you got these big drags on there, that you get there and you got the high snow, and all of a sudden you see the snow on top. You see these humps across the snow banks, you track it down, and here hung up in a bunch of willows, you got a live wolf hopping up down in the trap. That's kind of exciting every time, you know. You kind of follow your wolves down, or else they're alive there. Yeah, I know, it's all exciting. Just to having the freedom that they got it. Like, there's nothing I hate more than everybody, they're out there and they're in the country. The animals don't know where boundaries are. The world belongs to the animal. And yet there's so many people. Oh, there's something in the yard, shoot it. There's a skunk, kill it. There's a snake, kill it. Oh, I hate this, kill it. Well, sure you have to cut them down if you got animals killing your livestock, or in there you have to do something because it's part of your livestock too. But most people, they got a skunk, they got to kill them. Well, I mean, really, they're the best bug eater there is. Sure, they get the odd eggs and stuff, but if you take a look at it, we got lots of upland game birds and we got lots of other things, but there's still skunks and wild animals, right? I mean, they blend. Some eat, some don't. But it's just a part of the freedom of wild animals. That's what's so nice about the camp. We sit on the deck and we got deer coming through. We watch the lynx pounce on a rabbit up there and they come through. And I got pictures of lynx looking in our back cabin window at us. And we got a fisher coming through or a skunk coming through with her 5 babies. And you know, it's just, I don't know. I think they need more space than we do, really.
Do you create content you'd like to see on Max TV Local? Let us know at sasktel.com/local.